Can one man change the course of evil? When writer Ann Nocenti came on board Daredevil, the series had just experienced what many view as one of its greatest moments: Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's Born Again, a tale of spiritual death and rebirth that burns away Matt Murdock's world until only a purified man remains. So where do you go from there? What quickly followed were 4 issues from 4 different writers, one being Nocenti, each searching for Daredevil's new direction. Nocenti's story, American Dream in issue 236, is indicative of where her entire run will lead. It's deeply political, with a superpowered former Marine suffering from PTSD triggered by Nuke's attack at the climax of Born Again. It ends with his suicide, Daredevil's powerlessness, and a sense that the cycle of violence will continue on with the younger generation. That's a very dark direction for even Daredevil, a comic that was willing to go dark after Frank Miller's tenure on the title. But Nocenti's daring plotting during a time when superhero stories were embracing a more cynical, gritty side of storytelling clicked with Marvel's editors. There are 2 directions taken by Nocenti's Daredevil run: pointed, externally focused criticisms of then-current society and government, or deeply internalized questions of Matt Murdock's true nature and the morality of superheroism. These 2 directions swap suddenly and almost haphazardly throughout Nocenti's 53 issues of Daredevil, which ran from 1986 through 1991. And by seeing how they inform her many divisive, wild stories, we can examine what Daredevil means when seen through a more complicated, socially minded lens. I just assumed everyone would hate everything I did and they'd throw my ass right off the book, Nocenti said of her approach to the title. So that mindset actually liberated me to do whatever I wanted and have fun for the short party I thought it would be. I wrote with a last meal on death row mentality. One of the major recurring themes in Nocenti's run is whether Daredevil's actions are futile in a larger world that is inherently flawed and systematically corrupt. Superhero stories, naturally, provide readers with a sense of escapism. Nocenti's approach lessens that escapism by taking every chance to address some form of social injustice. This is most often done by having the villain of the piece represent corruption while also commenting on how these issues are larger than the character in question. So even when Daredevil defeats the representation, the issue at large still remains. Young children like 8-Ball and Lance, the young son of hired killer Bullet, are shown to be especially impressionable in this dangerous vision of New York. Nocenti's early issues have Matt establish a non-profit drug and legal clinic with girlfriend Karen Page so that he can take on New York's social injustices while still being technically unable to practice law. Regarding her approach to Daredevil, Nocenti reflected, "I lived in Hell's Kitchen and I would see a legal aid clinic when I walked around. I said, that's where Daredevil should work. I would take pieces of reality, put it in the comic, and try to weave it into the story." Matt and Karen have found happiness amongst their grim surroundings, but slowly, over time, Daredevil makes foolish choices and forces conspire against him to remove any lingering hope. This sense of hopelessness is brought to the forefront during Murdock's time on the road, leaving New York after losing everything and trying to be essentially dead to the world. Despite his efforts, Daredevil is quickly pulled into the orbit of a new set of morally gray supporting characters, each of whom are either perpetuating or attempting to break free from a series of moral injustices. I remember after a Captain America story we got a letter that said, "Get the commie off the book," recalled Nocenti. We had a big laugh about that one. These sociologically focused stories are peppered throughout the run, but Nocenti often has her characters directly speak about the issues. Brandy Ash calls out widespread animal abuse. Number 9 addresses the sexism that led to her experimentation. Beyond these supporting characters, the bystanders of Nocenti's stories overtly discuss modern issues. Because of this, Nocenti's Daredevil feels much more socially conscious than the typical mainstream superhero comic. But it often feels more like Nocenti using characters as megaphones than characters naturally expressing their thoughts. The unavoidable result of creating an unfiltered, politically driven comic meant to overtly address the injustices of the day means that through a modern lens, some of these views seem oversimplified or extremely outdated. Such as Daredevil's brief relationship with a black woman showing the hero as progressive because he's literally colorblind. while others, like the Kingpin creating his own news conglomerate to perpetuate a false image of himself to the public, feel like biting modern commentary. Nocenti collaborated with a bevy of pencilers during her run, but John Romita Jr.'s work is synonymous with her Daredevil stories, with the illustrator responsible for most of issues 250 through 282 alongside inker Al Williamson. Romita had to juggle a variety of tones and genres to keep pace with Nocenti's constantly shifting storylines, but his clean lines, heavily crosshatched and weary characters, and sharply angled lines of action are instantly recognizable. Romita stretches his talents to portray a variety of hells, rural environments, and an increasingly broken Daredevil. Outside the commentary, Matt Murdock's internal turmoil starts with Nocenti's early issues, as he's questioned whether or not he brings more violence to New York than he actually stops. It's a recurring theme in superhero comics that seek to question the morality of superheroism itself, and it follows Daredevil all the way through the next 4.5 years. Over time, the hero loses his compassion and resorts to violence to get his way, nearly killing several enemies, but always pulling himself back from the brink. This moral dilemma is turned deadly by the arrival of Typhoid Mary, a dangerous woman, Matt's weakness, with a split personality that trumps Matt's own dual identities, hired to attack Matt's heart and destroy his happy life with Karen by the Kingpin. Nocenti had created several new antagonists for Daredevil in the issues before her arrival, but Mary is the writer's most enduring, striking creation. Suffering from dissociative identity disorder and sporting a wild 80s getup, this chaotic villain is split between the kind, meek personality of Mary and the violent, pyrokinetic assassin personality of Typhoid. "I think I wanted to shatter the female stereotypes," said Nocenti. "Virgin, whore, bitch, ditz, feminist, Girl Scout, all-suffering mother, et al. Into tiny fragments and yet keep all the pieces in the same little female bundle." Typhoid has the ability to subconsciously attract Matt to her through the innocent, unknowing Mary personality, while the Typhoid persona attacks him physically. The dichotomy creates a split within the already conflicted Daredevil, culminating in Typhoid sicking a legion of villains on the hero, who slowly break him apart. On top of all that, Karen then discovers that he's been cheating on her. Nocenti's run features defeat after defeat with little comeuppance for Daredevil's villains. The Typhoid Mary arc ends with the villain confessing that she loves Matt, only to drop him off a bridge. Afterward, Mary disappears from the comic aside from a couple of very brief appearances. She's destroyed Matt and gotten away with it, with the broken hero left wanting to die. Nocenti then stacks on widespread destruction created by the X-Men crossover event Inferno. Here, a legion of demons invades Manhattan, possessing machines and devouring residents. But the people of New York go about as if it were another daily inconvenience. It's cause for several extremely strange, dark issues. Where else would you find the hero plunging into the depths of hell, battling a demon train for the souls of dozens of New Yorkers? The hellish confrontation between a broken man of lapsed Catholic faith wrapped in devil's clothes and the very real forces of hell push good versus evil to the forefront. The mentally devastated Matt is silent for several issues, with Nocenti's omniscient caption boxes taking over. The Red Man's club grows bigger, and he remembers something else Stick told him, about getting bigger, bigger than oneself. Not God, but like God. Trust it. Take aim, and it will find its way. Nocenti's captions would grow in number over the series, taking up as much space as the dialogue for a sometimes overwrought noir narration. And while Daredevil vs. Demons was the result of Nocenti needing to tie into the then ongoing crossover event, she chose to keep this subplot going off and on for most of the rest of her run. The words off and on and most of are key here, because they can be applied to a lot of the plot points and characters created by Nocenti. New and classic characters are often dropped from the book with little explanation as Nocenti quickly changes focus. And don't expect them to return for closure by the end either. With a few rare exceptions, once a character is gone from Nocenti's Daredevil, they're gone. Karen Page literally runs out of this book. Arcs change fast and hard. Matt the nonprofit lawyer, Matt the nonverbal broken antihero, Matt the hard-traveling stranger, Matt the demon slayer, Matt the amnesiac boxer. But it's Daredevil's confrontations with the demonic forces of Mephisto that linger. Romita Jr. portrays Mephisto as a monster, not your typical red devil, but a gaping mauled, prickly, constantly shape-shifting force of evil. Matt even makes out with the devil for a brief moment in the aftermath of Inferno, issue 266, A Beer with the Devil. With Daredevil drowning his sorrows at a bar, he's drawn into the orbit of a mysterious woman who attempts to seduce him into little sins. Mephisto soon reveals itself, overwhelming the comparatively microscopic Daredevil. Do you see, Daredevil, how immense evil is? You used to believe that one man, no matter how small, could fight evil, could defy it, stand up to it, and that you grow into an enormous size by that very small defiance. But you're forgetting that, Daredevil. You're almost mine, Diablo. One day, I'll tip the scales, and you'll welcome me into your arms. You'll embrace me, Red Man, willingly, like you just did in the bar. Daredevil quickly hits the road to leave everything behind, but Mephisto and his newly formed son, Blackheart, try to chip away at Daredevil's morality. First by tempting him to kill his enemies, then with strife amongst his newly formed friend group, and finally by sucking the man without fear and his fellow travelers down into hell itself. What follows are several bewildering issues that break apart the group and tempt them in separate ways. They each resist, and Daredevil leads the way by ending his cycle of violence. In final confrontation with Mephisto, Daredevil reforms his identity by acknowledging his own irreconcilable differences. Humans know they are both good and evil at the same time. We accept that paradox. That's why we're free. That is our liberation, and our hell. You can't show us anything down here we didn't already know. Freedom can be paralyzing, if you let it be. Perhaps, Mephisto, it is freedom you fear. For a man who has already been dragged through his own personal hell, true hell itself is little different. And with a timely intervention by the Silver Surfer, Daredevil and most of his friends escape, bringing the Mephisto portion of Nocenti's stories to a sudden close. Daredevil has triumphed by wrangling his best and worst sides to create something greater. Also, a special shout-out has to go to Daredevil's 2-issue confrontation with Ultron, an Acts of Evil crossover that has Dr. Doom create a new Ultron to destroy the Man Without Fear, only for Ultron 13's self-destructive internal logic to allow Daredevil to knock its combusting head off with a stick. Nocenti took the crossovers that she was mandated to do and ran wild. Nocenti's final arc returns Matt to New York, but quickly gives him amnesia due to his madness-inducing trip to hell. Bullseye masquerades as Daredevil to discredit the hero's reputation for the Kingpin, as Matt takes the name Jack Murdock, his father. After a brief stint as an underground boxer, his memories are restored, and Matt dons the Bullseye costume to defeat his archenemy. But their confrontation blurs the line between hero and villain, once again having Matt question his increasingly gray morality. You don't know who you are. I don't know who I am. We turned out to be the same man, didn't we? Nocenti's final story needed to walk a line between carrying on the themes she'd explored throughout her run, while also restoring Matt to a status quo for future writers. The result is that Matt's amnesia and Foggy Nelson's sudden return to restore Matt's license to practice law feel scattered, disjointed, and unable to grasp a firm outlook on who Daredevil truly is. But maybe that's Ann Nocenti's Daredevil run in a nutshell. A wildly spiraling, politically conscious series of violent encounters that leave Daredevil and his audience with more questions than when they started. While Daredevil has been restored and some small hope has returned, the world is left messy, and the devil inside waits to break free once again.